Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for joining us and joining me for a walk through why Edge and where is it. It's been packed 2 days on Monday and Tuesday. Everybody's talking about Edge, which is excellent. So the question is why Edge and where is it? Because I think right now we're going through the phase of trying to understand exactly where Edge is and why do we have to do it, at least for the general industry. The key thing is to remember is that we are we are transitioning from this notion of mobile internet to hyper-connected world era. And what it is that in the mobile internet time, we are connected to cloud, our mobile devices, and we connect to cloud and we consume content. This is where the content is published. Obviously it started with news, then went to video, and then continued on with a lot of messaging applications and pretty much messaging communication. But the notion started with this concept of I am connecting and I'm consuming and I'm receiving content and information from cloud. But now we are entering this phase of everything connected, the hyper-connected world. Just look around this notion and concept of connected home. Just look around your home and you can quickly see that there will be lots of hardware. Everything is connected from the sensor of the door to your fridge, to camera, to TV, to dishwasher, to microwave. You have massive flow of connected hardware and connected devices that now need to exchange information. To connected health. Now, if we want to basically look at all the medical devices that also in our home or within our physician office or lab, how they connect with each other and they receive and exchange information, to your connected car, which we all constantly hear about, and whether it's about the operation of the automotive and operation and maintenance, that system need to communicate with each other, or it's about the driver within the vehicle, exchange and interaction with the car and other passengers, to the car and the car interaction and communication with other things, other elements around the car. And then the business logic that overlays in terms of what needs to really be done in different scenarios. So that's really the notion of hyper-connected world, where digital intersects with every aspect of our physical world around us as individuals and as a whole. In the world of this connected, hyper-connected world, we can't possibly think that we can continue with the same model of mobile internet era, the same way that cloud enabled was one of the key enablers and connectivity, the two key enablers of the mobile internet. I connect to cloud, I connect to connect for consumption, but the same way we cannot continue with that exact same model that we send data through a central entity for every communication of application, regardless of where the data gets produced and where the data needs to land. So the exchange of applications of all smart things. And we can't continue doing that for practical reasons. One is obviously a cost of operating the applications that either obviously increase the cost over time, which reduce the profitability, Two is because of latency. We constantly talk about 5G. We talk about faster network connectivity, but the reality is that at the end of the day, when I am within the vicinity and close proximity of another application or another device, I should be able to have a shortcut of pretty much more direct communication. So latency. The third element, which is extremely important, is the data privacy, and which is actually, as we know more and more, it becomes apparent that we are a target of the data exploitation as individuals and also as enterprise. And as we put our life in this digital world, we cannot expect to continuously pretty much provide the privacy information of every aspect of our lives to our application and solution provider. Then it's a matter of energy consumption. When Gartner said that only 20% of industry have gone through their cloud journey, and 80% are just starting, you can imagine that the number of the data centers by any of the cloud providers, major cloud providers, that pretty much supporting this 20%. Now, how many more do they have to build over time in order to serve that next percentage of that next 80%? So, and that those data centers requires a lot of energy to operate. And then it's about data security. There is a difference between security and privacy, as we all know, and these are the elements that we cannot continue with the central cloud only. So in that digital world where everything intersects with our physical world, and we know that thanks to Moore's law, there's going to be a continuum of existence of more compute in devices. There was a data that says by 2025, nearly 80 billion devices will be connected to internet. There's another data point that says the amount of data that gets produced will be doubled every year. Again, I have seen data more than that even. And with a central cloud only model, we cannot continue having a sustainable, basically, application development and delivery due to cost, speed, volume, and security, as we discussed. And cloud was designed literally for this notion of one-way communication, where where the belief of devices are not going to produce as much data. The content comes from top down. And the solution is really a hybrid edge cloud platform. The solution is not about edge or cloud. The solution is about it's both, and both need to work in a continuum fashion. I mean, one example that we usually use, we say Wi-Fi to cellular. The same way that both coexist, although disjointed, unfortunately, today, because majority of operators did not embrace Wi-Fi from early on, and therefore we have a disjointed experience that we constantly have to turn off and turn on the Wi-Fi toggle. But really, the reality is that we need to have both working in a most ubiquitous and continuous fashion. And when you look at the application communication, very quickly you realize that we're not really talking about Internet of Things. I know this is a term that everybody's using, but it's about Internet of Systems, because there's a need, and obviously with AI, that things are smart, systems are smart, and therefore systems need to communicate, whether it's gaming, media, education, healthcare, automotive, manufacturing. All these things need to communicate with each other. So the question is, where is edge? And just in the short period time of the past 2 days, we saw so many different definitions of edge. It's hyperscale edge, AI edge, far edge, near edge, cloud edge, mist, IoT edge. And that will create, and it has and will continue creating confusion if we don't just normalize this term, if we don't just say that, you know what, at the end of the day, let's look at what are the things that is happening and how do we define edge. And the way that we approached it is that edge is really any hardware, anything outside the data center, today's data center. Any hardware that has memory, CPU, storage, connectivity, and operating system. And that can be any device. It can be the iPhone that I'm running my application on. It can be a smart gateway. It can be a base station. It can be basically a Wi-Fi and a smart TV, or it can be an electronic shovel at the mine site. So all these devices that have memory, CPU, storage, connectivity, and operating system that are running a client application or a client agent, they are edge. And there is no notion of far or near. The reality is that you, from the application point of view, and based on the business logic, they can decide where that workload need to be run. And because that's the entire thesis of edge, that is about bringing workload to the closest proximity of application demand. Therefore, if the app and where the data source is, therefore, if the application and the data source are running on my iOS as a consumer, I need to have the ability to process that workload, to process that data. And now that my smart device needs to send traffic or information to another smart device, then we need to provide app developers with the capability that they can just utilize this continuum flow of compute in a very standard way. And empowering application developers are very important to adoption of hybrid edge cloud. So one of the key things that we should not do is to not introduce proprietary technology stack. One of the key things is that we don't know what we don't know. You know, in the world of IoT, in the world of industrial IoT, in the world of consumer, as we introduce new applications, the direction may change. And we may need to introduce interaction of one application that we developed with another one. So the agility for the software developers are very important. So we should not introduce proprietary stack. We should allow serverless microservice development, both on the front end and back end. We should provide a light container for microservice runtime environment. We have to provide an API gateway function at the edge. So on the edge, so that application can interact with, and at that time either is interacting with a local microservice or a global microservice. We should provide context, network, proximity, and account. We should provide a standard security of communication with other microservices and provide a logging capability for analytics. And again, at that time, we can get app developers to just focus on the business logic and development of their application, instead of confusing them with the notion of where the edge is. So from the app developer, they can continue the exact same application development with all their standard application development and delivery methodology. They can continue using Kubernetes, Open Horizon for orchestration. They in the cloud environment, they can continue using Docker, or any other container. But then when it comes to edge, the container on the edge and the container on the back end are kind of have the same notion, so that you can run your microservices. You can continue using OAuth 2.0 for all the authentication. You use OpenID Connect for app development, and at the end of the day, you don't from the app developer point of view, there is no, I'm not forced to develop my application for edge in a different way that I'm forcing it for the cloud. Yes, the business logic and the constraint of the resource that I have will make a decision in terms of during the deployment, where do I push that function for the deployment and for the processing. So with this model, we swing between the public cloud, private cloud, and edge in a very seamless way, and we develop a hybrid edge native. We develop with an edge-in approach versus a cloud-out approach. What it means that now we provide an ability for devices to dynamically discover each other, and for devices that are attached to the same network. For example, I'm home, I'm at the same Wi-Fi, or I'm in an industrial IoT, I'm in the same Open RAN, and now all these heterogeneous devices that they're not necessarily of the same nature, they can communicate with each other with microservice to microservice, utilizing the context of network. Then the device can communicate with another device within the proximity and context of proximity, or I can basically, as a consumer, no matter where they are, I can reach any device that belongs to me because they are within this cluster of account. So in that sense, we start from edge and going back to cloud when needed. And the cloud at that sense, it can be the central cloud. So I start from the device, then I go to a proximity resource that is available to me. That can be a gateway, doesn't have to be a gateway, can be a base station, can be an on-premise data center, or can be a cloud server. So let's look at one example operation today. This is a real use case scenario, because I think one of the challenges of edge is that everybody's kind of saying, okay, so what is the use case? And the use case is around us. Every day we deal with it as a consumer. Any application that you download today can be transformed to a hybrid edge, as, for example, we can share some of the use cases that we did at Mimik, or anything that need to go through the digital transformation can utilize hybrid edge immediately. So let's look at this, an electronic shovel at the mine site. Today, you can have a sensor that basically the sensor is supposed to provide intelligence to the machine operator to decide how to maneuver. The way, one of the ways that it's proposed is that, okay, so now the sensors send the data to a gateway that is connected to the same electronic shovel. Then the gateway is sending that data to an on-premise data center. Then the on-premise data center is sending it to a public cloud where the algorithm for the data analytics are running. And the data gets crunched, the response sent back to the on-premise cloud, the response sent back to the gateway, and finally the response sent back to the operator of the machine with their connected on-vehicle display in order to see how do I maneuver. Some could say this is a use of edge in that notion, but this is not the best use of edge. We may consider edge as now I have a connected gateway, therefore I am edge. But the reality is that if the sensor cannot discover the device that the driver of the operator of the machine is running, then there is no point. So how could we improve that? If the sensor that is now has, let's say, a Wi-Fi, and through a Wi-Fi mechanism, even if I don't have internet, I can discover the other device that is on the same Wi-Fi. And now I can send data based on the policy that also been put to the sensor dynamically. The data gets sent to the operator display, and then the display can do some staged analytics, provide the necessary information to the operator, and the knowledge can be sent to the cloud, on-premise or public cloud. And this way is faster, cheaper, and more effective. And now when we adopt this notion of microservices everywhere, then what happens is that, let's say in 10 days from now, as I launch this application, I realize that, based on certain event, the sensor need to also send information to another electronic shuttle, or the operator may need to notify another operator. So, and that's where you start introducing a new microservice. You start when you have the ability to communicate with sensor as well. You can send a policy to the sensor. You can send a destination address for where that sensor need to be sent. And the underlying hybrid edge cloud is providing that dynamic device discovery based on the three contexts of network, proximity, and account. You have a standard microservices and sidecar component ability that now you can just introduce via API and create interaction with them. And the system can work with or without a fixed gateway, with or without the private public cloud, with or even without internet access. Because if I have a Wi-Fi as a means of frequency communication, even if I don't have internet, the two devices can now discover each other and create the communication. And this way we can meet the business demand as it evolves. That is very important. If we force the business decision maker today to just think within one context, we delay adoption. Because at the end of the day, they need to continue their flexible, agile interoperability and scalability. And we need to provide the capability that they can do that cross-device, cross-OS, cross-network, and cross-cloud in order to fast-track the digital transformation that we all need as an industry. So the use cases become sky is the limit. Today, for example, at Mimik, we have customers that developing, I call it single user health application. I'm downloading an application today. It's monolithic behind the scene on the client side, microservice in the backend. With this approach, when I'm downloading the application, my application is still IC, and behind the scene, I have microservices that are running on my device. And from the H2 wellness point of view, who's a customer, they are now utilizing the power of edge device, and they reduce their cost of cloud, for example, from $28,000 to $2,400 per month, and increase their application development time, reduce their application development time by 300%. And then it comes to, we have customers around smart mobility that are using the same architecture, gaming, and etc. So at Mimik, we've been in this sector for a decade. We saw this trend quite early on, and we have pretty much myself and my team dedicated our lives to this problem. We started with the notion of edge gateway first, and then we realized that there is more compute coming, and therefore we should not be limited to an always-on gateway. And with the trend that we see, introduction of gateways, just close your eyes and imagine yourself in the shoes of the business decision maker. How many gateways do they need to have at their site in order to enable their business to be digitized? And the other most important thing that we have to take into consideration is that we must develop with hybrid edge native approach. So it starts with edge in. It's not only about deployment. Edge cloud is not about, okay, we yank what I have on the central cloud and I put it on the device, or I create a DevOps that I can bring it from there to here. No, it's also about, again, adopting this notion of edge native and developing with this kind of an edge first approach and going to cloud as we need it. And also there's opportunity to not only create new digital experiences, but create new business model, while we must develop responsibly and protect our digital footprint, data privacy, reduce our digital waste, as we keep replicating data everywhere. It just doesn't make sense. Generate digital income even for the data producers, such as consumers or enterprise. They need to be in control of their own data. And collaborate. This is an ecosystem play. It's just starting. Hybrid edge by orders of magnitude larger than cloud market. Again, go back to what Gartner said, that only 20% of industry have gone through the cloud journey and 80% is starting. So there is enough, the market is large enough, and we're just at the beginning of this trend that we can all work together and really enable the next generation of applications. Let's continue our discussion. If you have any question at our virtual booth, Mimik virtual booth for developers, you can go to developer.mimik.com. You can ping us with edgeadvise@mimik.com. We're here to help. We have a lot of examples at Mimik Git, and all our APIs are at Swagger Hub that you can go and just look for Mimik, M-I-M-I-K. And by the way, I realized I did not introduce myself. I'm Faye Arjomandi. I'm the founder and CEO of Mimik. And Michel Berger, our CTO, touched further in the detail of technology. We're looking forward to working with everyone in this ecosystem. So that's about my presentation.